everyone, and welcome to our second episode of The Level, a vodcast series brought to you by VMLY&R. This vodcast creates a space where we highlight our POC colleagues and underrepresented groups within the agency. The intention is for us to talk about real topics, real issues, and action steps we can take to improve the workplace and the work we do to amplify and level up our communities, our voice, and allyship moving forward. Y'all, second episode!
Episode 2!
Yeah, made it.
Yes.
So exciting.
And I just want to do a quick little just shout out, all of those that, rode for us, checked out the first episode, all the great feedback, commentary. We love y'all. We appreciate you. Keep it coming. We'd love to incorporate questions and guests in future episodes. So definitely hit us up and, let us know what's on your mind and what you'd love for us to be talking about. So just wanted to shout out and share a little love.
We'll start off with some gratitude today. So for me, one of my gratitude moments has to have been when Simone Biles took a step back from the Olympics. And that stuck with me for so many reasons. I think if I'm being candid and transparent, life is hard. We're all going through so much. And I often, on a personal level, mental health is important to me because anxiety drives me. There's depression and there's so many things that we experience in life. And I think if I'm going to be honest about the POC experience, I think coming in an agency that's predominantly white, it can be hard, especially when you feel the need to show up every day and you feel the need to, you represent so much of who you are. That's a lot of pressure when you're the only one.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like if I don't show up, who else will? But sometimes that's not my burden to carry. Sometimes it's okay to take a step back. And if Simone Biles can take a step back from the Olympics, baby girl, you could take a step back from that internal meeting. Ask for another day. Tell them, hey, right now I can't. And it's okay. And for me, it made me feel like even superheroes are human. And that's the easiest way I like to put it. And it reminded me that even incredible people need days.
Yeah.
So that's so much of how it made me feel. It made me feel human. It made me feel seen. How did you guys feel about it? About this about Simone Biles taking a step back. How do you think it helped, hurt? Your thoughts.
I thought it was amazing. I think a lot of times people really get caught up as if you put them there. She earned that spot, right? She worked hard and she owes nothing to anybody. And so a lot of times I feel like in moments like that, especially when it's, you're representing the country, it is bigger than yourself. But at the end of the day, yourself has to come first. And I think people oftentimes put the precedence on, always having to think bigger than them. And if your mindset, which is what hers has been for the majority of her life, in that level of competition where it's a lot bigger than her, it can be tolling and taxing, and people forget that. And I think it's so insensitive. I think I don't think it's humane to forget that this is an actual person, like you were saying, Danny. And I appreciate, even beyond just her taking the step back, what she did even leading up to the Olympics. The fact that this girl took other people, mentored them, put them in a position to succeed and to win. So it wasn't only just that she was being successful in her own right, but she's grooming and building other people to come up with her. And her taking that step back also opened the door for other people to experience what she has already done. The girl's already successful. Yeah. She done did it. There's nothing that she has to prove. And people's comments and how they treated it, it was just she doesn't know you nothing. She's already proven it. She's already amazing. and she knows that. And because she knows that, she was able to take that step back. A lot of times we don't know how great we are. And so sometimes we feel like we have to put up that, that front all the time. And it can be taxing. And so I'm with everything that she did, how she did it. True champion for real, beyond the Olympics.
Yeah. And I would argue too that she does, I think because she's thinking about everything in such a high purpose and for the sport and for everyone, her stepping back is actually changing our definition of what does success and leadership look like, right? It's not always just being dominant, pretending nothing is wrong. I think that's how it's been for a long time. But the fact that she's been nurturing, mentoring, being open about celebrating, Jordan being on the team with her, and then also stepping aside and giving Suni Lee, who's the first Hmong American to win a gold medal, right? Like that is something bigger than herself. And I think that sign of, team partnership, excitement, like that is something that we don't see often in maybe what we see as traditional athletes in the Olympics. And I think that's where we need to think about how do we translate that to work, right? Like we're having more diversity, D&I conversations, and it goes back to kind of what we talked about in our first episode is how do you redefine leadership? How do you redefine expectations? Because more people are coming in and more people are in that intersectionality, more than ever before. And I think it's all about that redefining the moment. What does it mean going back to work, right?
Yeah.
Is it being in the office and not?
Right. I mean, Claire, well, I was just even thinking about, it was interesting because this all kind of coincided with Black Women Equal Pay Day. And so like for me, there was this underlying frustration because you even talk about like, Simone kind of stepping back and sort of making that room for Suni, and in a different way, like Serena, not necessarily stepping back, but being a champion and what that brought out of Naomi to be a champion. Yeah. And she also, prioritized her mental health and what really was going to keep her being a champion. And so, just all of this kind of coinciding with, Black Women Equal Pay Day and realizing, I got to work almost a whole nother, like, third of a year just to make what, white dudes out here are just getting off the bat. And the work, like you said, like as we start to go back to work, we're also now shouldering, this additional burden of like, all of the things that we've taken on, learned differently, had to change and modify over this sort of pandemic and the way we've changed our working ways and still as people of color, still like succeeded and tried to grow, elevate, mentor, lead. And, going back into the workplace, I know for me definitely has some concerns. I'm definitely looking at it like, when I'm in meetings and, I can't necessarily react like I can when I'm on a video, like, non-video chat. And I'm just like, did she just say what I think she just said? So I would say like the whole piece about it, definitely brought up a frustration for me that especially Black mental health is not valued, is not, considered important, and really prioritizing your mental health is a sign of strength and leadership. And so I really wanted to hopefully see that as the key message that gets taken out of, Simone, Naomi, Serena, Misty, like, let's like throw them all. I mean, it's been years that, Black athletes, especially Black female athletes, have just been, reduced down to, less than they are, and definitely not held at the highest regard that we hold, other mainstream athletes at. So
I want to circle back to something that you actually said, and this at work, working harder. When we're saying we're doing double the work, let's break that down, what that really means. Okay, while yes, I have my day job, of course, where I am a creative. I get to enjoy those things. I get to work on those things, but also understanding that aside from being a creative, I am a woman of color. I am a Latina. And to understand that there is no space, it feels there is no space for me. There is no path. There is no path for me. It feels, especially when I can't see it, it becomes hard for me. So what happens is that I am doing my regular day job, and then I also need to create space for people like me to authentically be, so they can see themselves. So when we say doing twice the work, we're not saying just, we're on 2 times the meeting. No, it's 2 different kinds of work. Yeah. It is my day job and it's my life job. And that's how I want to refer to it. It's my life job, because this understand, for my life and many people on this call, it will not stop at this job. Unfortunately, it will not stop at this agency. It will not stop at the next one. It is going to be a reoccurring issue. So understand that a lot of your a lot of people of color really, really have to work on creating space. And this is how we get our voice. This is how, and so that becomes emotionally taxing. So, and mentally draining, if I'm being quite honest. Sometimes it's hard. I often talk to you, you 3, and I tell you, y'all, I'm going through it. And sometimes I just need someone to see me and to understand me. So like, mental health plays such a large part in our community. Also, our community doesn't talk about therapy and mental health, but that's like a whole nother.
So great.
Right.
Girl, I say all the time, the black tax is real, because you're doing your 9 to 5, you're doing your day job, oftentimes above and beyond, and it isn't just 9 to 5, so we already know that. But then you are like coming into these environments, like you are also then, like you said, your life job, how you're being a leader, how are you mentoring, how are you just even showing up so that you can make room for others to show up, and it's just, it's a lot, like it's a lot. And then, oftentimes we get involved, because not only are we just, creating that, sort of shadow of leadership just in our day-to-day jobs and being, thoughtful people managers, or being just, inclusive collaborators, whatever it is. But then on top of that, like, we're also involving ourselves to improve the broader agency culture and community. So that's the actual then more physical work on top of, just the day-to-day job, the life work. Then you have the transformative work that a lot of us get involved in, because we want to move action forward rather than just, hoping that it catches on.
And can we just, the other side thing is, can we just get the benefit of the doubt? That, I think that's something that I struggle with at times. And, it's, you want to move forward, be authentically you. I don't have an issue with that at all. But then every now and then you do notice where there is unconscious bias. And I think we talked about this before. Unconscious bias is, there is that feeling, I don't know how to really describe the feeling, but you just know that there are other factors in play. And I think, I've had a recent experience like that, and it reminds you that you could be up here doing so great, and all it does is it takes that little unconscious bias where you don't get the benefit of the doubt to then spiral. I call my imposter syndrome the drunken monkey, to unleash the monkey in my car running around unleashed, and then now I have to spend, after work, 8 hours to go and do let me just wrangle this monkey, put him
back in its cage.
Not driving my car because I'm trying to get there. I made a pit stop for 8 hours. It's okay. But that, I think that's, it's hard to find a solve for that. But, I think that like unconscious bias, to build on what you were saying, Nikeisha, like how do we actually, that's the invisible work. That's the other work that you have to go come back and rebound from, and tomorrow morning show up at 9 a.m.
be a G and be a G the next day. Like,
and perform at the same level.
Clara, you said something about imposter syndrome, and I've actually been battling that. It's always funny because when I tell people about imposter syndrome, they'll be like, when you started in your career in the first couple of months, I go, baby, it never left. What you mean? Like, what? So
couple months.
Right.
It changes. I think it evolves. Like, it starts with like, you don't know what you're doing, but then it becomes, for me, it's like, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Like, my imposter drunken monkey was fueled with what I should have done, what I could have done, what I expected my level of reaction to be, and I didn't do that. And then it becomes like, she's back.
No, I get that. So what I've been doing is I take a step back, right? When I'm feeling maybe I won't get, maybe I won't this, maybe I won't do that, maybe maybe I won't do my best work, And what I've done is I've taken a step back. When I start spiraling, I take a step back and I'm like, historically, just based off of fact, how many times have I showed up? How many times have I produced good work? How many times did I think it wasn't going to happen and I pulled something out of nothing? I made tightrope out of twine. How many times have I done those things? And then I'm like, okay, then I take a step back and I sit with myself. All right. Be like, okay, listen, you've done it. This is a pattern, which means it's a part of who you are, which means that you're exactly where you're meant to be. Mm-hmm. Exactly where you need to be.
Yeah.
And so that's how I fight my imposter syndrome. And it helps some days it don't. But generally speaking.
Yeah. It definitely is that need to look in the mirror and encourage yourself. And, I was going to say this earlier, but, I'm grateful for even a space like this where I can come to, people who understand what it is that I'm going through. And I think a lot of times that is part of the problem. That's part of the microaggressions, or that's part of the unconscious bias, is that no one wants to take that time to understand or to see that these are real things that our minds go through. These are real places that, these things trigger us to. And it's because whether it's past experience, whether it's because that, these things are actually real. And a lot of times our white counterparts don't want to put themselves in our shoes or ask our experience or ask us why it is that you feel those things. Sometimes it's just having that dialogue and that conversation and, that uncomfortability for them to want to engage or to want to know, or to feel like, we don't need to talk about this. Like, this is not a big deal. This is just stuff that you got to put to the side and you come to work. It's those kinds of things, that kind of mindset, that that lack of understanding that, causes us to have to, like you were saying, Clara, after work, I got to rebound. After work, during work, sometimes having to ping you guys and say like, y'all help, or y'all, this is what happened. Like, am I going crazy? Am I tripping? Am I not looking at this the right way? Do I need to take a step back, or am I overreacting? Before I even give a response, because we just want to make sure that I'm in the right headspace. Yeah. And so, we're talking about these mental issues. We're talking about mental health, and it's like in the day-to-day, in the moment, that these kinds of things happen for us. And it's, I appreciate the support group, I guess, at the end of the day, is what I'm trying to say.
Same.
Because it's real and it's needed.
And I also think, I really appreciate the space too, because I think sometimes our first reaction is like, did I do something wrong? Is that right or wrong? And I think for me, at least personally, along my journey, I'm realizing there is no right or wrong. It's how you feel when it comes to mental health, right? It's your situation. No one else knows. So when other people maybe, and I'm actually thinking, like, for me, just thinking about how do you actually brush away what you expect someone else's reaction to be versus advocating for yourself. It's actually, for me, just learning how to advocate and be like, you know what, these are the boundaries, and not feel guilty about setting those boundaries. And Simone Biles, just at that such Olympic level, her second Olympics, winning all these medals, for her to set those boundaries without faltering and having that support system around, I think that speaks volumes for how we need to keep moving forward. Is really, I that's something I think I struggle a lot with. I see a lot of people struggle with that, especially more junior in their career, is setting the boundary and then not feeling guilty or letting the guilt override your boundary.
Clara, you bring up such a good point, and I think going back to work, this is something we'll have to keep in mind. Because for me, I'm going to be very transparent here. When I first started, when I didn't realize how many things would trigger me, and I would be like, is this a normal reaction? What do I say? Do I not say anything? And I think that is hard. It's really hard. And so it's good to have run things by people and be like, hey, am I bugging out? Or do you guys see this? Like, is this a normal reaction? And then on top of that, I know, as you know, especially for like Latinas, it's if I come back with something super sassy, I'm this fiery Latina. I am, I don't want to, and I don't want to be a collaborator, and like, so it becomes so hard to find that balance. So I think going back to work, I think we all have to be a little more conscious and a little more cognizant of what we put out, and what we are willing to take. And if I'm starting to work on myself, that if something makes me uncomfortable, if someone makes me upset, the ball's always going to drop, baby. That's number one. The ball will always drop. What are you going to do when it does? And that's what I'm prepping for right now.
Yeah, like Dan, you have said it so well, and like combo too, Claire, with what you were saying around boundaries. Like, I think we know we're going back into work and that it's going to be different, that we have different boundaries now that we didn't realize that, like you said, Danny, like you didn't realize what triggered you before. Like, I've been thinking about like, I have 4 client meetings, a week, every day, Monday through Thursday. And I'm like, there's been moments being in those meetings where I'm like, if I were face to face right now, how would this go? And so, I think one of the things that I've really tried to do in sort of leading my team is just be really conscious about, those boundaries, like things that are being said by our clients or in other meetings and how that might impact them. And I really try to like reach out and stay in tune to the mental health of my team. Like, because, and I've said this, I think I've told you guys so much, like, people management is like next to godliness for me. Like, it is when you have the ability to influence so many hours of productivity, with the team underneath you or working alongside of you, like you've got to be a little bit, in tune to what's going on with them, what triggers them, what's driving them. And so I think if there's anything that I would say to team leaders, managers, just even those that walk in a leadership space, is really double down on people management, double down on knowing your people, connecting with your people, because it is going to be so key in those first few months that we're back for that groove to really not fall apart around us. You know what I mean? And people to recluse back to, only wanting to be virtual, because we can be in the office together and still just show up to meeting virtually. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to really think about how you create as a leader the environment that keeps your eye on kind of all of your people and just how they're adjusting and coming back and really making sure that, that mental health and that adjustment back to being in person and testing boundaries, is really top of mind and being thought of.
Yeah, and I would add, I think just having empathy for both everyone around you, and also, for me, I'm a manager as well, but empathy for me as a person as well too. I know sometimes managers look like they have everything on lock, ready to go, set up.
You're like, nah, boo.
You don't know
this monkey over here just going. You don't know.
Like, I don't know the monkey as a friend.
Oh shit! Do not give the monkey a friend. Lord help me. You talking about triple overtime now, girl.
But I think that empathy is like everyone. Like, I know the transition will be difficult for everybody, regardless of what level, where you are. And I think if we can make that our action step of saying, okay, someone's asking for a couple hours off, like just take it and move on. Don't question it. Get it, create an environment where, you know what, I'll take that work off your plate. Because I think for me, one of the things that I often struggled with is if I say, hey, I need to take a personal day or I need to go on vacation, the work would be there when I came back. So it's as if I never left at all. And I think one of the biggest gratitude moments I have is my team. I went on vacation recently and things moved along. So when I came back, it wasn't a pile waiting for me. It was, I could get in the middle of it. And there's nothing bigger than that when we're talking mental health and giving people time. It's like, you're actually also helping versus just take time off.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should, because we're talking about these things, right? But I think we need to call them out. I think we need to show people this is what we're talking about. So I think we need to go offline with it real quick and let people know that these are the things. These are the watch outs.
Yes.
So let's talk about in detail.
Okay,
this is what you don't
so
offline.
Offline. Yeah. Listen, the microaggressions, people. Okay? Like, let's talk about it. Check yourselves. Please check yourselves. Like, don't be touching people's hair. Realize and recognize that we are coming back to an environment that we have just spent the last year and a half talking about 6 feet of like personal space. So, I know like the touching hair, hopefully most of y'all have gotten that memo by now, but even being thoughtful of close proximity and just understanding, again, boundaries, because you will have people of color who feel like they can't say something. So check yourselves, people. Check yourselves. That's my plan.
And don't confuse me for the other Asian in the office.
Oh, child. Child.
Talk about it.
That. So, just
I can't get confused with nobody because they know the other black people.
As simple as learning someone's name.
Right. My biggest offline is going to be, listen, everyone has unconscious bias. Everyone grew up something. Everybody has been taught something that might have not been true. When I'm not telling you that you have to believe in all these new things, what I'm asking you to do is before something leaves your mouth, just think, does anyone need to hear this? Is it helping? Is it helpful? And think of the most opposite person in that room. It doesn't have to be another person of color. It could be someone who's dressed differently. It could be someone who's more quiet. It could be whatever walk of life that is. Ask yourself, is this going to make them uncomfortable? Is this going to push them further away? So before you open your mouth, really just ask yourself those questions. I try to do it. Don't get me wrong. We're not perfect. And again, if you mess up, then say, damn, I'm so sorry. Instead of pretending it didn't happen, go back, be like, damn, yesterday I thought about this in the car ride home and that wasn't cool. I'm super sorry. You're totally, and I love people who do that. Be like, oh my God, thanks. I thought I was just going to have to take this bullet and keep walking, but now it's going to start healing a little bit. And that's how we help each other. That's how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Love that.
I'm going to call out 2 things. First thing, if I say something in a meeting, if I am speaking, don't move on to whatever the next person said or go back to what the person said before me. At least give a space of acknowledgement to what was just said. I would say that. And then because we understand that even now in the workplace, especially when you see things on like LinkedIn or sometimes our work profiles are connected to our social. And so workers were integrated in that way as well. If I put something on social and I am, and it's for like the cause of letting people see that, hey, this is whether it's where I am or this is something that I noticed, something that I witnessed, or something that happens in the workplace, something that triggered something and I'm calling it out. If you're going to, as my coworker, see that and acknowledge it or come to me, come to me in the way that you are, what Clara was talking about, bring empathy, or acknowledge it in the way of wanting to genuinely know what the cause was or what's happening, as opposed to, hey, I saw that and I think you took that wrong, because you disregard everything, not only that I just wrote, but you also are a part of the problem in what I'm bringing to the forefront. And so we're talking about people management, we're talking about mental health. That is something that can affect as well. The lack of being seen, the lack of being heard, and then making it as if my experience is actually wrong, or the wrong way to take it.
Yep.
So let's not do that and stay away from that, people.
Let's not do that. Let's not negate people's experiences. Thank you, Luis. That was knowledge dropping right there. Please, if we take anything away, let's not negate people's experiences, because it is their experience, and it is so. It makes up who they are. And when you do that, you rob them of that
validation.
Yeah, and that positive mental health. Like, I
think everyone just wants to be seen, acknowledged, and validated. And I think by not acknowledging or imposing your ego response, sometimes it does negate someone else's experience. And that's simple as introducing someone in a meeting that they might not have met. I think I've never felt more welcomed and acknowledged when someone and that's small, like little things like that. It can feel invalidating to someone in the BIPOC community if you do not introduce them in a meeting, so I just think all levels doesn't need to be major, that it can impact people in both positive and negative ways.
Yeah.
So good.
Booyah! I mean, I don't know. I think we dropped it on them. I think we dropped it on episode 2 in the books. That was so. I love this. I think we need to do these episodes more and more. I hope you all want to see more and more of them, because the conversation is so great, and I hope we really dropped you all some nuggets and some things that you can think about and take away, and especially really start to put into action. As we all start to return to the office in a couple weeks. So thank you for joining us on another episode. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Bye.